from the Heart.
Hello and welcome to Horror from the Heart. I'm Josh, and jumping right into it today, we're going to talk about horror in TV. So to start off, it really wasn't as prevalent as it is nowadays. You did have a few things here and there with, I guess you would say, more of the, how to put it, like the cop shows and things like that. That was like the closest thing that you really got to any kind of like horror stuff, because it wasn't necessarily horror. It was kind of based off of real life horror stuff in certain aspects, but it wasn't as dramatized as it is nowadays. But you didn't really have it all that much. One of the earliest representations that I could probably think of, now correct me if I'm wrong, but would probably be a soap opera actually called Dark Shadows. I know they made a movie out of it later on with Johnny Depp, and it was more of a comedy, but back then it was dark and mysterious, and it didn't really start out that way, until later on in, I think, like season 2 or so, when they actually introduced Barnabas into that. But you really didn't have a lot of different horror TV shows that were out there. Now, as the years progressed and things like that, we did start developing more and more stuff. Like, we ended up with, the Friday the 13th TV series. Freddy Krueger had a small TV series for a good little while. There was other little shows here and there. Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side. Tales from the Dark Side. Never mind. Let me correct myself right there. Right there. Forgot about Twilight Zone. And I don't know how I forgot about Twilight Zone, but there we go. Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits. They did have certain episodes that were very horror-esque in a lot of different ways. It was more mind-bending in that shocking kind of way of horror than it really was an outright grossness that a lot of the shows have nowadays. God, I can't believe I forgot about those. Yeah. But anyway, going on with that, though, a lot of the shows started becoming out more and more as the years have gone by. Like I said, you had the Freddy Krueger one. You had the Friday the 13th, which was not actually the Friday the 13th as we think with, like, Jason and everything like that. It was more like little tales and stuff like that. And that, from what I remember, that's actually kind of what they wanted to do with the movies, too, if I remember right. Again, quote, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But as it progressed on and we got more into, the later 90s and into the early 2000s and things like that, you had a very big saturation of that kind of market. So you have shows out there like Supernatural, which actually started out as a serious type of TV show. Wasn't really supposed to be the way it is now. It's a fantastic show if you're into comedy, but supernatural type of stuff. It's definitely really interesting, really cool. The characters are great, and it's finally actually wrapped up its final season on that one. But it starts off with a very serious tone to it, or try to have a serious tone to it. But then you have other shows out there like The Walking Dead, or The Vampire Diaries, or The Originals, and it's progressed, and we've gotten more and more and more. And there's even a lot of shows out there that were made for kids here and there that had horror elements to it too. So if you go back and you look at some of the older stuff that was out there, that we actually had some cartoons that were about monsters. Like you had My Pet Monster, which was supposed to be more lovable than anything, but that's kind of like pushing that horror element into it. But then you had other ones where it was straight out making like All Real Monsters. It was about monsters who scared people. Or you had from the 80s, I cannot remember for the life of me, and it was like the Inhumanoids, if I remember right, but it was more of a horror show than it was anything. And then even in the 90s, we had Tales from the Crypt, and Tales from the Crypt, there was a cartoon for that, but there was also the TV show that was out there on HBO for the longest time. And they were all really good shows, but now it's gotten to the point where we've gotten a huge saturation. Like The Walking Dead is one of those ones where it's been going on for a good long time now. And it started out really good, and in my opinion, it didn't really progress the way it probably should have. And I get it was supposed to be more about the people and all the drama and everything that was going on with that and how humans are the real monsters type of thing. But at the same time, you can only go so far with how some of that stuff goes. And it's not what it used to be. But you have a lot of shows out there nowadays, and especially with streaming too. I mean, you can go jump onto Shudder, and there's tons of original Shudder content that's out there that and they don't sponsor me or anything, just saying, but they have tons of original content that's out there that they've made that's actually really, really good. I mean, they did a Creep Show TV show, and I'm waiting for season 2 on that one, because that one was actually really good, and I love the way they did it. But they have, like I said, they have tons of stuff that you can probably check out that are original TV shows and things like that. But almost every single network that's out there has their own version of a horror show out there. Now, granted, not all of them are supposed to be scary, and it's just more horror elements than it is anything else. But at the same time, that's one of those things where it's like horror's kind of saturated into a lot of different markets. There's horror comedies and horror romance and sci-fi horror. And that was what I was talking about in one of the previous episodes about the different genres of horror that are out there. Now, I can sit back and say that I wouldn't say that it is as good as it used to be, in my opinion. This is, rose-colored glasses, if you want to call it rose-colored glasses, or a nostalgia factor type of thing. But I really don't think a lot of the shows nowadays are as good as they used to be. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some good things that are out there. You just have to really kind of look for it. But at the same time, there's quite a bit out there that is absolutely horrible in the aspect of you get into the whole cheesy B-flick type of style. And I think some of them kind of push onto that kind of stuff a bit too much. Now, I mean, again, it's my own personal opinion. I love cheesy B-flick type of stuff, but some of it is just straight out way too much. And you're trying too hard. Now, after that, though, it's like how can you take an experience like that and change it? How can it be better? Because you look at the production, and I've already said it previously too in my episode about movies, I don't think it's as good as it used to be. And that's mainly because a lot of the stuff is rushed. A lot of productions want this, they want jump scares, they want this kind of stuff. But I'm kind of curious as to what you guys would think as far as how it could change to be better. Story-wise, or is it a set design type of thing, or is it, just the production in general, like CG versus practical effects and things like that? Or is it something to where there really isn't a way to actually make it better because people are so integrated with horror that you can't really make anything that's kind of like creepy and freaky the way it used to be and actually scare the crap out of people the way it's supposed to be. Now, I know with how everything is too, on top of that, we still have TV technically, but it's more streaming than it is anything else. So you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Shudder, and all the other ones, and there's tons of horror stuff that's out there that you can view. I mean, there's even stuff that you can check out on YouTube, or I don't know if YouTube Red has any of that. I never did a subscription with them, so I couldn't tell you on that one. But even stuff that people have made out of their own, channels and things like that for YouTube of horror elemented type of things. Like check out Alter. Alter had some really good like short films that they did that were really cool. They're not high production or anything like that, but I mean, hell, even some of the stuff that is so low production could be like the best thing out there. It's one of the reasons why we have things like 2-sentence horror stories. But that's still, in a way, kind of like a form of television in its own little way. Whether you watch YouTube on TV or not, that's one thing, but everybody pretty much watches a lot of the Netflix and Hulu and things like that on a TV or a mobile phone. And we pretty much have traded out our, TVs for mobile and stuff like that, or traded out our computers for mobile and things like that. So it's like the new TV in a certain way. But going on about that, getting to the end of this, I'm really kind of curious if you guys watch any actual like horror TV shows, and if you do, what's your favorite? Why? I'm really curious as to what your favorite is and why it is your favorite. Is it because of the production design, or because of the costumes, or the story, or anything like that? And if you don't, you don't get into like the whole TV aspect of things, why on that? What do you think of the like horror TV shows that are out there? And if you've made it to the end of this, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me rant on as much as I do about the horror stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Leave a like if you like the video. If you're listening to this on podcast, leave me a review if you can. Share with people if you can too. You can also follow me on Twitter at HorrorFTH, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode.